The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points, having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things. So I would say we have a deal, and we're going to just make sure that everybody understands what the deal is. He invited me to China, and I invited him here. We've both accepted. So I'll be going there with the First Lady at a certain point, and he'll be coming here, hopefully, with the First Lady of China.
The U.S. and the European Union also making progress during a recent trade meeting in Paris, but top negotiators say no breakthroughs just yet. Joining me now is the White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro, back with us. Peter, it is so good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning with Maria.
So, yeah, you got it. Peter, I want to get into the trade deals that everybody's expecting, but first, of course, we got to talk about and address this elephant in the room. Is there a feeling within the White House that things are calming down, that maybe Elon Musk and President Trump will have a phone call today and maybe make up?
I think, Maria, the value added I can give to your show, which is a business show, is talk a little bit to bond investors. When you do the forecasting properly for the big, beautiful bill, you go from a $1.7 trillion deficit over the 10-year period, as forecast by the Congressional Budget Office, to an over $2 trillion surplus. So this big, beautiful bill will actually reduce the debt and the deficit. And the way the CBO got it wrong, and is now admitted it, is two ways. It dramatically underestimates the growth rate. It gets us in the ones instead of the twos or even three. That's a couple of $1 trillion. That's about a $3 trillion swing alone. And the CBO just admitted and just scored the trillions of dollars of tariff revenues we're going to get. So this big, beautiful bill, I want to assure everybody in America that this is not only the biggest and broadest tax cut for the middle class in this country we have ever seen, and avoids a massive tax increase. It also is fiscally responsible in a major way. It will lower the national debt and the deficit over the 10-year period. And I think, you know, we just sit down with Elon and go over the numbers. I think he would understand that. I had a piece in the Hill on this week, if anybody's curious to do the numbers. But that's, I think, what's important about this discussion between the president and Elon, because the big, beautiful bill should not be the sacrificial lamb here. It's a beautiful and big bill for America.
So, I mean, Peter, the CBO is talking about, and this is from Ron Johnson, by the way, Peter. The CBO is talking about, you know, $22 trillion in 10-year deficits, $2.2 trillion a year, and total debt going from the current $37 trillion to $59 trillion by 2035. I have a hard time believing that the EV mandates are really going to cut into that very much. Was it the EV mandates not being in the bill that sent Elon going nuts?
Well, look, the EV mandates, look, first of all, President Trump, if I had a dime for every time President Trump said on the campaign trail he was going to end the EV mandate, I'd have a ton of dimes. And he is a man who keeps his promises. This really isn't about the EV money per se. What it's about with the CBO is an historic pattern of getting their forecast wrong. If you go back to the 2017 tax cut that the president orchestrated, the CBO at the time forecasted, as usual, a very low rate of growth. It did static scoring. Its Keynesian assumptions basically put it on a path where we now know it underestimated the growth rate by about a percentage point, and that's trillions of dollars. And it's there they go again. I guess they can't help themselves. At least they have now included the tariff revenue in, and when you do that, that alone gets us the surplus. But when you get the growth rate too, I mean, Maria, we're not going to grow 1.7% over the period with Trump policies. That's absurd. We've seen the Trump policies worked before: the deregulation, the strategic energy dominance, lower energy prices, the fair trade, and now the DOGE waste, fraud, and abuse cuts. We know that we're going to grow in the 2s and probably hit 3 or more because of the president's policies, and the CBO won't score that. So if I could sit down with Ron John, I love that guy. I'd just go over the numbers with him. But the numbers are the numbers, and this, if you do the numbers correctly, you get to a substantial multi-trillion-dollar surplus. And I think that's what people should focus on, because the bond market has been reacting, I think, in the wrong direction to all the rhetoric about the bill. But if you just do the numbers say yields should be coming down.
By the way, this is a whole nother discussion, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's going to join me on Sunday Morning Futures on Sunday, says that 40 state attorney generals wrote a letter demanding the unprecedented federal power grab be removed from the bill, that, it's going to replace mass amounts of human jobs in nearly every job sector over 10 years. That's not about the cost. That's about something else. But I pointed out because of this upset in the Senate, you're seeing now the House start talking about, oh, well, what about the AI? I don't want data centers near my house and all this other stuff. But you made a really important point about growth, Peter, and I want to get into that because Kevin Hassett has been on this program saying, look, we're going to see 3%, 4% growth in the second half of the year. That's obviously not being looked at in the Senate from, some of the people who are no votes, they say. And the tariff revenue is also having an impact ahead of this 90-day pause, reciprocal levy pause ending on July 9th. How much would you say the tariff revenue is going to help pay for this? What's the numbers there that you can come up with in terms of the tariff revenue, Peter?
Yeah. I would refer people to the article in the Hill this week because I do the numbers. It's about half and half. You get the growth rate correct, and then you add the tariff revenues. It's at about a $5 trillion swing, Maria, and about half of that's growth and about half of that's tariff revenue. But the beauty of it at the White House here is just right over there. President had the members of the, I think it was the Senate Finance Committee come in to talk about the bill. And there's great understanding now about all of these issues. And I'm very bullish about both the Senate and the House right now in terms of where everybody's at. There's like one outlier, Rand Paul, and he gets a lot of air on CNN and other places. But this political legislative branch is foursquare behind Donald Trump with respect to the tax vision. And look, the alternative is unacceptable. It's apocalyptic. You have a massive tax hike that will take this country into a massive recession, and people understand that on the Hill. Of course, there'll be some jockeying between now and then about line items and things like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're going to get a big, beautiful bill, and it's going to be fiscally positive for this country.
All right, so you're talking about the tax bill, you're talking about trade deals, you're talking about tariff revenue. The president is working to bring American manufacturing back home. Companies are trying to reshore production and supply chains, and those efforts have doubled after President Trump's 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum took effect, Peter. Tell us more about the steel and aluminum tariffs and what you see that bringing to the table here in terms of added revenue. Do you worry that 25 to 50% is going to alienate do you not want that foreign steel coming in?
Miriam, I'm so glad you asked that question. There's so much news in the world that on Wednesday, tariffs went from 25 to 50% on both steel and aluminum, and virtually nobody noticed. They should notice because steel and aluminum are critical to our national security and economic prosperity. And here's why the president had to go to from 25 to 50%. We have, let's talk about steel. We have essentially a world glut that emanates from China. It's a massive overcapacity. And what China does is it feeds that steel into the world, and it comes here and it dumps and it puts our companies out of business. And we saw, despite 25% tariffs, What Joe Biden did was, first and foremost, he put in a bunch of exemptions and exclusions, which gutted the 25% effect. But even with the 25%, what we've seen is a lot of transshipping of Chinese steel, particularly from Vietnam, but also from Korea and Taiwan and Japan, coming in, and they openly scorn a 25% tariff. They openly advertise, hey, we'll eat that, no problem. And it's been a problem for the steel industry. The capacity utilization went back down to 75%. It was well over 80 in the Trump years. And then there was net losses in terms of the balance sheets in the fourth quarter. That's unacceptable, and it's a function of cheating. So 50% is a very good number. We're now in a position, Maria, I have very good news for the American people. We have enough capacity in this country to serve America's needs, both civilian and military. And that
huge.
should make people very secure. But what happens is we're buying too many imports, and they're putting, I mean, the aluminum situation.
Peter, let me ask you, we're still waiting. We're still waiting on lumber and copper tariffs. Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals expected to follow. Should we expect lumber and copper goes to 50% as well?
The number will be determined by the facts, Maria. That's how we work here. That's how we roll at the Trump White House. So when Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, issues his report to the president, he will have a recommendation based on market conditions, and the tariffs will be set accordingly by the commander-in-chief. I want to just mention on the aluminum issue, because that industry is even in much more dire shape. We lost 2 major smelters on Biden's watch because he wasn't paying attention. He was, I don't know, the auto pen didn't manage to, I guess it signed some exclusions. And we've already had promises, Maria, of 2 additional smelters coming online. Century Aluminum is a great company. It's doing a great job. And from the Emirates, they're doing one as well.
Are you expecting more trade deals in the near term? Because, Peter, we keep hearing that, you know, India could be next, and the EU is doing this fast tracking. When are we going to have more deals to talk about in terms of tariff deals?
Well, the United States Trade Representative building, I don't know if you've ever been over there. It's right across the street. It's a historic building. It played a really important role in the Civil War, but it looks more like a deli now, where you go in and you get your number and you stand in line, and you do that so you can negotiate with Jamison Greer, the USTR, and Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce. And that's what we're doing. We've got a formula and a template. We go through 5 different verticals to make sure the American people are protected. And we will have deals. It takes time. Usually it takes months and years. In this administration, it's going to take more like days. We're on task and on target. And at the end of the day, you know what we want, Maria. All we want is fairness. We have the highest tariffs facing us in the world and the highest trade barriers. It's not a China problem. It's a world problem. And we're going to fix it, because that's what President Trump does.
All right, Peter, it's great to talk with you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Nice to see you.
Peter Navarro is at the White House. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Stay with us.